I remember very clearly my first impression. Everything was brown. There was no color in the city that it was kind of looked dimsel my first day. And I got my trainer that day, and I had felt pretty good about Spanish in the MTC, but once she started talking to me, I didn't feel so great anymore, and we went into our area, and we just started working, and it was a rough first week for me because I just went into culture shock, and I kind of felt alone because I didn't speak the language. But I think that week is what I really learned what mission work was all about. It wasn't that I wasn't called as a missionary because I'm a great teacher, or I wasn't called because I'm really good at Spanish, but I was called because Heavenly Father wanted me there for a specific reason. And in my first area is where I really learned how to love the people and how to just really strive to be more like Christ. That it wasn't about numbers, it wasn't about being great at teaching, but just doing what the Lord would do in every circumstance. Even if that meant that I couldn't speak very well, at least I was trying to love the people the best that I could. And so I think that was my first memory. It was, at first it looked kind of dimsel to me, but then it got a lot brighter as I realized why I was there. The mission itself is mainly the Baja Peninsula, the northern half. So it doesn't really go into mainland Mexico all that much, but it's just the Baja right under San Diego. So I could actually see San Diego from my mission. And so being on the border and being just on the seashore as well, it has a bunch of different people and a bunch of different cultures mixed together. And so we taught Asians, we taught Mexicans, we taught Americans, and it was just a mix of cultures. The church it's growing there, and it actually just got a temple. And I was able to be in the open house during my mission, which was an amazing experience. The temple was dedicated about a year ago in 2015, and that was amazing. So because of the temple and the open house, the church is growing a lot more. But the main religion is still Catholics, and they are very strong-willed in their religion, and that was an obstacle for us. But the people are so humble and so kind that they would always let us teach about Christ, no matter what religion that they were in. I think it's the best mission in the whole world. We always said that it was the best. And one thing that made it really unique, I haven't visited other missions, so I'm not sure if this happens in other places as well, but the people would contact us. The people would come up to us and they would say, you are preachers, or you are, missionaries, and we want you to teach us. And so they would come up to us. And, we still had the people who would reject us and slam the door in our face, but I thought it was amazing that people would just ask us to come teach them. And I think, like I said before, the different cultures really make it a special place, because it's the people there, they say, oh, this isn't what Mexico is like. It's a completely different area. It does have a lot of American culture mixed in it, a lot of Asian culture, a lot of South American culture, and everything mixed together just makes it a very welcoming place, because the people know that everyone is different, and so they're very accepting of everyone, which I really felt when I was there. I served from June of 2015 to December of 2016, and I served in Tijuana for most of my mission in multiple different areas, and I also went to a city called Ensenada and Rosarito. And so those were the 3 cities that I served in, but in the mission itself there were also cities like Mexicali and San Luis, and it went all the way down to Guerrero Negro. In the city of Tijuana, there's 6 stakes, and each stake has about 6 wards in it. And I would say on average, a ward has about 100 people that attend every Sunday. So somewhere less, I think the smallest ward that I served in had about 60 or 70 that attended, and the biggest had about 160. And so it just ranges from there. And depending on the city size where you are, depends on how many stakes there are. The biggest challenge, the first one that came to my mind, was retention. Because like I said, the people are really willing to learn about Christ, and most people would let us set up an appointment with them or let us into their house. But they would take the lessons and they would commit. And if they got to the point of baptism, lots of people would go through with it because it was something good about Christ in their life. But after that, they wouldn't stay. And so we really had to make sure that the people had a testimony. In the mission, when I was there at least, the investigators had to go to church at least 5 times before they could be baptized. So they would show us that they were really committed to going every Sunday and that they could get there themselves and that they would be willing to show us that they were committed to the church. Not that it was just another church about Christ, but that they knew it was the true church. But other commitments that they had a hard time with, the Sabbath day was a really hard one because they're in Tijuana, there's lots of factories. And that's where most of the people work. And those factories, usually you have to work on Sunday, or they have the night shift on Saturday, and it's hard for them to keep the Sabbath day holy. And because they are in low circumstances financially, it's hard for them to give that up and to have enough faith to keep their commitments. And so we really had to make promises as representatives of Jesus Christ that they would be okay and they would get more blessings by keeping the Sabbath day holy. But that was a hard one for them to sacrifice. I could talk about the people for hours. I just love them. I have never met a more generous and truly loving people than I did on my mission. That was something that just amazed me about them, is even though some of them had so little, they were willing to give it all for us. And I never went to a house where they didn't offer us something when we left, whether it was a fruit, whether it was a drink, or one of their jackets if it was cold. They were always wanting to take care of us, even if they weren't members. They just are so generous there, and they really love everyone. And I really learned to just be grateful for what I have there, because those people they're just happy in their circumstances. They're very outgoing. They're very positive about life. And they're in the other cities that I served in Ensenada and Rosarito, they're a lot more laid back than the people in Tijuana, because Tijuana is more of a business town, and there's trade and things like that. And so the people are always busy and they're going. But in the other towns, they're on the beach and they're a very calm people. And they take things at their own time. But again, they're exactly the same. The Mexican people, I feel as a whole, they're just so generous and they're so loving, and whatever you need, they're willing to take care of you, even if it means sacrificing something of their own. There were lots of different cultures there. The people that I met that were from a different culture, whether it was Asians or Americans that lived there, most of them adopted the culture in Tijuana. And so they had, a little bit of a different style, but they adopted it as well. So I honestly didn't see too much of giant culture differences within the people, but everyone just adopted a mix of cultures, if that makes sense. And so they were just very welcoming. And I do feel like the native Mexicans there, they were just very proud to be Mexicans, and they loved their land, and they just welcomed everyone there. And I feel just like everyone that went there just kind of adopted it. And I think I did as well, in part, that I just loved it there. Well, as for me, this was something that I had to adjust with when I got there, because I've always been someone who's a planner and who likes to be on time, and, I'm always just thinking about what's next. But there they really just live in the moment. They take one thing at a time, and sometimes that means that some of them are late to church, or their culture is a little bit more laid back, which can be a good thing at times, but it's something that I think I had to, and maybe we as Americans have to adjust to there, because they just have a very calm and we'll get to it when we get to it attitude, which is a good thing, I think, in a way, but a little bit hard to adjust with when working with investigators and working with church members. When I got my mission call, I had no idea really what Tijuana was like. My first impression of what it was like was my mom's face when I opened my call, and she was just terrified for me. But I looked it up and I realized that it was known for its crime and known for drug crossing across the border and lots of things like that. But when I got there, I realized that part of that was true, that it is a somewhat crazy city, that the traffic is insane. You have to give yourself at least an hour to get to your meetings, and the buses are crowded, and there's people running in the streets. They sometimes drive on the sidewalks. It's a little bit crazy in that sense. And I always felt safe as a missionary when I obeyed the rules and went to my house on time. I know there were circumstances for other missionaries when they were robbed or when they were confronted in that way. And I was followed a few times, but I always felt safe when I did follow the rules and when I was just obeying, the time schedule and things like that. Most people work in factories if they work in Mexico, but lots of people do cross the border and they work in San Diego. And so it's really interesting because those people have a lot higher income because they receive money in dollars and others in pesos. And so the economic difference between people is outstanding, that some are very well off and then others live in wooden houses or tin, metal houses. And so there was a lot of diversity in that way. And honestly, there's not much to do as a tourist in Tijuana. It's not really a pretty city in that sense, but it's an amazing place that I would go back any day to go visit. So I'll start with housing, I guess. As a sister missionary, I will admit that we get the better houses in the mission, and so I always felt very comfortable with the houses that I was in. They don't have carpet, and they don't have lots of the luxuries that we have here, but they have nice homes, and the mission provides and the church provides really nice things for their missionaries. The cost of living, we received about 1,000 pesos every 2 weeks, I believe. And that's about $50. So we received about $100 a month for our food and personal items and travel, and depending on where you were in the mission. And the cost of an apartment was usually 1,000 pesos to 4,000, 5,000 pesos, which is very cheap compared to here. And the weather in Tijuana, it was actually kind of surprising because when I heard of Mexico, I thought it was going to be really hot all of the time. But in the winter, I did go wear a jacket all the time, and I slept in a hat and gloves, actually, because they don't have heating and they don't have air conditioning in Tijuana, because it usually stays between, 40 degrees to maybe up into the high 90s in Tijuana itself. So that's where I was most of my mission. And so it does get kind of cold if you're walking outside all day, and it does get really hot. But other areas in the mission, it gets up to 130 degrees in the summer. And luckily, I never served there, but there were lots of people that did. And but the weather's pretty temperate. In February, they have a really rainy season where it just pours all the time, but just for a week or so. There's not a lot to do, but we were allowed to do. On P days, we usually just played sports as a zone. We played volleyball. Sometimes we would go look at the beach, without getting too close. And I'm sure there are lots of things that you can do just going to visit. The tacos, great. That was probably one of my favorite things to do there. Is the food was fantastic. But as you get farther south in Rosarito and Ensenada, they have other things to do that you can go see that are more touristy. But as missionaries, I honestly didn't get much of a chance to go see those things. And so, I'd like to go back and see them sometime, but as a missionary, we just, did fun things every once in a while. Just be careful. No, honestly, it's just, you have to be firm when you know you want something. Like if you want to get on a bus, you just have to force your way on there, or, it's not too crazy. You just have to, it's kind of hard to explain the travel system there. I can promise you that it's good. Gained 15 pounds, so it has to be good, right? Let's see. The food there, I honestly didn't eat anything that I really didn't like. Because it is so close to the United States, they have a lot of food from here there. They just put a little Mexican twist on it. And my favorite food there were the fish tacos because they are on the ocean. They have a lot of seafood, but they make it spicy seafood, or they put it in a taco, or they do lots of different things with it. And that was my favorite food, were just the shrimp tacos and the fish tacos that we ate there. I'd say the most common food that we ate for lunch, we ate lunch with the members every single day. They made us food. And they were probably just the rice and a tortilla and chicken. And that was the main thing we ate. But they made a variety of food for us, and all of it was so yummy. And honestly, none of it made me sick, and it was great. And I don't know. See, the sisters there, they give you a lot of food. And that was really hard for me at the beginning because I thought I ate a lot before the mission, but there, you are supposed to finish everything on your plate for them to feel like you were truly grateful for it. And then they want you to eat more. And so that was hard for me to adjust to. And it was all yummy, so it wasn't too hard. But at the beginning, that was kind of rough, just having to eat more than I was comfortable with. But it was great. I had no problem with food. The drinks there, if you ask for water, you have to ask for pure water or just simple water, because the water there, they always put fruit in it. And so it's more like a juice. And so we had, what did we have? We had orange water, we had lime water, we had watermelon water. They just blend up the fruit and then mix the water with it. And if you ask for water, that's what you'll get. And so that was super great as well. For snacks, everything has chili on it. Everything has some type of spice with it, which I loved because I love spicy things. But I know lots of missionaries did struggle with that because they weren't used to it. Even the candy is spicy. They put chili on everything, but it was really yummy. They are really famous for their tortillas, their flour tortillas. Those are great. And just their carne asada, that's what they're known for as well. It's fantastic. Just everything was really good. I ate octopus. That was pretty crazy. But it was in a taco, and it was actually really good. So, I don't know. I wouldn't call it that crazy because I liked it. But that's about it. Honestly, I didn't get too many crazy things there. If you just wanted to do a contact, you would, stop someone on the street and say, buenos dias, buenas tardes, buenas noches. That's good morning, good afternoon, good night, good evening, depending on, what time of day it is. Then you would usually just start a conversation with them, you know. If they were maybe selling something on the street, and you'd say, oh, you know, what are you doing? ¿Qué está haciendo? Or, how are you? ¿Cómo está usted? And then they would reply and you would start up a conversation. Then after a little while, you would present yourselves. And I always do it in we, you know. We are missionaries of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is said, somos misioneras de la Iglesia de Jesucristo de los Santos de los Últimos Días. And then you would tell them more or less of what we did as missionaries. So, you know, enseñamos mensajes de Jesucristo, which is we teach messages about Jesus Christ, or we like to help and serve other people. Ayudamos y servimos a las personas aquí. And then usually we would offer to help them with something. Podemos ayudarle en algo. And, you know, they would respond or they would comment on something that we had said. Then after speaking with them a little more, we would usually ask if we could go teach them. You know, podemos enseñarle, or if we could set up an appointment. Podemos poner una cita para regresar y enseñarle algo. And then if they accepted an appointment, then we would come back and we would teach them more. And then we would do get to know you questions, like, what's your family like? ¿Cómo es su familia? Or what do you do for work? ¿En qué trabaja usted? And they would just keep the conversation going. And then we would teach them all of the lessons and get to know them more. I guess I'll share a funny one first. This was my first week in the mission, and so Spanish was still a little rough for me. And in, I think Mexico in general, but in my mission there were always people that were selling things in the streets. And instead of going door to door, they would just yell whatever they were selling. And so I was studying in personal study one morning, and I just heard this man yell, bigote, and in Spanish that means mustache. And so I just got so confused because I knew what bigote meant, and I just kind of looked, you know, a little confused. I was like, okay, yeah, crazy guy, I guess. But the next morning he came back and he just yelled bigote outside of our door. And so after a few days, I finally asked my trainer and I said, why is that man yelling mustache every single day? And she just laughed, and she just laughed for a long time. She said, no, hermana, no, sister. He's saying elote, which is like those corn, going the cob on a stick. And so that's what he was selling. But I thought he was saying mustache every single day. But the ironic part is later that day we were walking around and there was a man really selling fake mustaches. And so I said, hey, see, it was him the whole time. And it was just really funny. So there will be times like that when you just don't understand the language, but it turns out to be a funny experience. Let's see, what else? A scary experience, I guess, that I had was in Tijuana. There's lots of stray dogs. And I was tracting with one of my companions, and we had received a referral for this address, and so we went to the house, but no one was there. And it was in a dead end, just a circle in the street. So as we were coming out, my companion was just a few feet in front of me, and she walked by this car, and all of a sudden, these two giant dogs started chasing her. And I was training her, so she just said, you know, protect me, and she ran behind me. And so I felt that I, had to face these dogs, and they were chasing us, but I was walking backwards, so I could, see where they were going. And, in my mind, I just prayed, Heavenly Father, please help me. These dogs are about to attack. And it kind of turned into it did turn into a very spiritual experience, because when they attacked and they started going for my ankles to try to bite me, but every time they would come up to bite my ankle, something would just close their mouth and push them backwards. And I saw this happen right in front of me, that they physically couldn't bite me. And that gave me enough time to run away. And of course I was a little shaken afterwards, but it's a very cool experience to see that. I believe that angels are protecting all of the missionaries, and that, even if it's just a scary dog that I didn't want to chase us or to bite me, Heavenly Father was always willing to protect us. So I think just one more. This was probably the most spiritual experience of my mission for me. And so the first couple baptisms that I was able to see in my mission, it was a young couple, and they had two little girls, and they had a really rough life coming up until their baptism. And so they were in my very first area, and they got baptized, and they said, "Okay, Sister Hewish, we'll see you back in a year when we get sealed in the temple." And so I was able to go to the open house. I was able to work in the temple during that open house, and I was just so excited to get to see them there. And as I went to different areas, and I somewhat kept in contact with that family, they had so many challenges that year. They lost their jobs. They, had a fight and separated for a little while, and there's so many things that Satan was trying to throw at them so that they wouldn't get sealed. And there was a time when, about 3 months before they planned to get sealed, when that sister wrote me and she said, "I don't think it's going to happen. Sorry to say, it's been rough, and we're still going to church, we're still striving, but it's so hard." And I just bore my testimony to her through an email, because it was all I could do, and that they should just keep going and that it would be okay. And then she emailed me again and said that the date was set, that they were going to be sealed. And it was towards the end of my mission at that point, but I was able to go into the newly dedicated temple there and see those first two baptisms sealed together. And that experience alone was worth the 18 months of work. And it was amazing to get to see that it's not about the baptisms. Really, missionary work is about helping other people find that same happiness that we have in the church. It's about helping them to have an eternal family, because that's what the plan of salvation is about. And so just being able to see them again at the end of my mission, they knew me as the sister that was really nice, but that didn't speak much Spanish, to the sister that was just there with them at their sealing. And that was a very spiritual experience for me. And it's hard to explain exactly how I felt, but the joy of just seeing them there, getting sealed together with their children, was worth everything. So I guess just to wrap that one up, I remember contacting this lady, and we would share something that we taught as missionaries with the people that we contacted. So I just said, we as members of this church, we know that families can be together forever. And she just stopped and she said, "Really?" And that hit me, because I had grown up knowing that, and I had grown up believing that and having such an amazing family. But that lady just said, "Yes, please teach me," because most people don't know that. So that's what it's all about, is just seeing those families come together and giving a little bit of your time so that other people can have their families forever. First one that I thought of, comfortable shoes. Make sure you have very comfortable shoes, even if they cost a little more. I would really invest, because Tijuana is a walking mission, and it has lots and lots and lots of hills. And so your feet will hurt every single day, and if you go more for style than for comfort, you probably will regret that. And as for clothing, I would get really lightweight, wrinkle-free clothing that's easy to take care of and wash, and really just look nice but feel comfortable, because you will be jumping on buses, and you will be walking around town all day. And sometimes you will be on a bike in other cities. As for, safety, I would just make sure you stay with your companion. The mission rules are there to protect us. And honestly, I didn't ever feel unsafe there. And so if you're in the lighted areas, if you're with, members, we always try to have a member present with us at night, you'll be fine. And I would really trust your mission president. If anything does happen, don't be afraid to just let him know, even if it was something that just scared you, because he and the sister mission president, his wife, they are there to help you and to protect you as well. And so I really trusted in them and whatever guidance they gave us, even if it was go in a couple hours early today, we did it and we felt great. As for just well-being and health, I would exercise every single day. Even if your companion, doesn't do it as much, just getting moving in the morning, I really felt that helped me. And there were times when I did it more intensely than others, and that I really saw a difference when I did do that. And just be smart. See, the only thing that I thought of with awkward situations in Tijuana, in Mexico in general, they greet each other with a kiss on the cheek. And it doesn't matter which gender you are. And so lots of people, the members know that we don't hug the other gender, we don't do those things with the other gender. And so they don't come up to us and do that, but other people will. They'll come up and try to greet you with a kiss, or they're just very loving people, so they'll try to give you a hug. And you have to be kind of careful the way you deal with it, because you don't want to offend them by saying, don't hug me, you can't do that. But you have to let them know that, as missionaries, we don't do that. And we just try to stay away from those things for those 18 months or 2 years. And so I found myself in a couple awkward situations with things like that. But, if someone accidentally just hugs you, then you just, explain, sorry, I don't do that, and it'll be fine. But that was the only surprising thing that happened to me. While I was there, actually, they had us wear pants for 4 months because the mosquitoes got so bad that I think in many different countries and missions, they had the sisters wear pants because the mosquitoes were so bad that they were carrying viruses and things like that. And so to protect us, they had us cover up as much as we could. But no one in my mission got sick from it. And so that was kind of an interesting thing that we had to do to protect ourselves from sicknesses. But other than that, I think I just had the common cold once in a while, and that was fine. I knew going in that the mission was going to be hard. Everyone said it's not easy, but I really wasn't expecting how hard it was going to be, not only spiritually when people reject you, but mentally, emotionally, physically. It really is a very draining thing to do in some aspects of life, because we're just not used to that. But I will admit that there was a time when I just thought, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. I don't know if the mission is meant for me. I don't know if I'm strong enough to do this. But so I guess I wanted to say that if that feeling comes into your mind, you're not alone. That I think a lot of missionaries have had that feeling at least once, maybe at the beginning or maybe later on, but that just push through it, that the Savior really can and will help. And it's worth it in the end. Each day has something really hard on the mission, but looking back, I can't remember any of it. I can only remember the good things that came from it, the good things that happened to me. And it was the most amazing experience of my life, and I know that I grew more than 18 months than I did in 19 years leading up to it. So to prepare beforehand, just, prepare yourself, maybe move away from home for a little while, maybe, learn how to cook good foods, or, get in good physical shape, because it is straining on every aspect of life, but it's so worth it in the end. It's hard to explain exactly how those 18 months of my life have changed the course of my life. I always knew that I had a good life leading up to my mission, but really experiencing what I did for those 18 months changed everything. I really know that missionary work is of God and that He directs it, that His hand is in every single thing that missionaries do. I know that the Lord works by His missionaries. He doesn't just watch and give us the blessings occasionally. He's there working with us. And really, it's the Spirit that converts other people. It doesn't matter if you're a great teacher. It doesn't matter if you're great at the language. If you really love the people, if you really want to be there, that you just don't go because you should be obedient to a commandment or to revelation that you received. But once your will to go on a mission lines up with Heavenly Father's will for you to go on a mission, everything changes. You truly find the joy in missionary work. And I really know that there's no greater thing that we could do than serve a mission and help other people have what we have and have that joy. Because I know that Christ lives, and I know that Heavenly Father is our Father in heaven, and He's also the Father of millions and billions of other people around the world who need to hear that. And any sacrifice that we can do to help other people know that is worth it. And I know that it's the restored church, and I know that the Book of Mormon is powerful. I've seen it work in other people's lives, and it works. It really does. The gospel is simple, and it's happy. It just changes the lives of other people, and it's really changed mine as well. I'm so grateful for the opportunity that I had to go on a mission and to have it change my life. And I know that it will change yours as well.